Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Stretford Paddock. I am Alex. I'm bringing you another news from Old Trafford, having a look at the papers on this beautiful November Tuesday morning. Like I said, outside Old Trafford. It's not even cold. Can't even say it's cold this morning. Still no hats. That's what I'm waiting for. As you know, when I do the news, I'm still waiting for someone else to wear a hat. It won't be me. I'm still thinking Casey Evans, but make sure you're in the comments. Let us know. Let us know which Paddock presenter will be on the news first in the hat. Now, someone else put a spanner in the works. We've got Stephen Howson started doing the transfer review again last week. I think he could be high up that list of someone to wear a hat. He loves a beanie hat, does Stephen Howson. So keep an eye out and let us know in the comments below who do you think first is going to wear the hat. And also, like the video. Today we've got news all over the place. We're looking at Alex Tellez, bit of news about Paul Pogba, and also, yeah, it's right, I've got a little bit of an update about Jadon Sancho. To start with, here is what's going on with Alex Tellez. Everyone's been a bit confused. All sorts of rumours coming about what's actually been going on with Alex Tellez. So everyone knows that Alex Tellez contracted coronavirus and missed a couple of games for Manchester United. We're not quite sure when that kind of started, whether it was directly after the PSG game or a little bit later, because United didn't reveal it until after the RB Leipzig game, I believe, that Alex Tellez had tested positive for coronavirus and he missed a few games for Manchester United. Last week, before the international break, just before the Everton game, Tellez started training again, and we knew he wasn't going to play for Everton, but then he got called up for the Brazil squad, which he's gone to. Now, this is where it starts to get a bit complicated. Brazil, they have the same kind of thing as us. Once you've done your 10-14 days after you've tested positive, you're fine. As long as you're fit and healthy, you can go back to normal. So Alex Tellez went to Brazil, started training, all fine in the world, no problems. So on Saturday, Alex Tellez even made an appearance for Brazil, coming on in the 90th minute for an injured fullback. So that meant that Alex Tellez was looking likely to be playing when they play against Uruguay tonight. Now this is where things started to get a little bit complicated for Alex Tellez. Uruguay have slightly different rules around coronavirus, and that you need to have, if you've had coronavirus, you can't just be flying in and playing football. You have to go through the testing again. So Alex Tellez needed to have another test for coronavirus, and they say had to test negative. This is where the rumour mill started to happen. Alex Tellez, there was a few rumours flying about that test had been done and he had tested positive again for coronavirus and couldn't play. And again, this is where people start saying, well, they start saying he's contracted it twice. This is it. He's one of the 30 cases in the world where he's contracted it twice. He's a freak of nature. He's contracted it twice within 2 weeks. And Manchester United are going to miss him. We're going to have no left backs because Luke Shaw's now injured. So whilst these rumours started coming about, United went, hold on, we need to step in here, have a bit of chat. And yesterday, United put a statement out saying that they were investigating all this situation around Alex Tellez and what's going on with his coronavirus symptoms and his updates and his tests and stuff. And they said, you know what, even if he has tested positive, which there was a possibility, because they didn't even know at this point that he still could play for Manchester United against West Brom, because it might just be a case of it's still in his system, and this test has just picked up the coronavirus that he had a few weeks ago, and he's actually fine. Turns out, and this came out in Sport Witness yesterday, that Alex Tellez hasn't tested positive. He's actually tested negative. So you can probably watch him play tonight. He'll be probably playing for Brazil, probably starting, and hopefully getting a few minutes under the belt after missing a few games for coronavirus ahead of United's game against West Brom. So tonight, that's Brazil versus Uruguay. He'll be playing against Edison Cavani, who scored at the weekend as well, tonight in their World Cup qualifier. So talk a little bit about Marcus Rashford. Yesterday, the lads on Howson's Brew went in depth about all the stuff that's gone on this weekend with Mason Greenwood and Marcus Rashford, and how the papers have been writing nonsense, writing stupid things and all that kind of stuff. And you know what? Those lads did a fantastic job yesterday going into it, looking into the stories. I think if you've not watched that already, having Ronaldo, Jay and Miss Stephen House on the Howson's Brew yesterday, make sure you go and check that out. But yesterday, there was also an article came out from The Guardian. This is Jonathan Liu, who again just kind of said how ridiculous that article was about Marcus Rashford in the Mail on Sunday, saying things like, talking about his properties, like property. A Manchester United player who earns money is buying properties to support him, not only himself but his family for the future. That was the article. That's how it should have been written. That a player who's done fantastically well to become one of the best in the world is now in the situation where he can not only support his family, but he's also doing charity work. That should have been the article, but instead it was phrased in the wrong way. This campaigner Marcus Rashford buys £2 million worth of luxury homes. That's how it got said. And this is what Jonathan Liew went on in The Guardian about. He talks about how it was the subtle things in that article that were just wrong and that were pointing and being an attack on Marcus Rashford. The little things about the picture of him in the article being angry and in a hoodie. There's things that people don't pick up on, but those subtle things are what's wrong with all this. Yes, there shouldn't even need to be an article about Marcus Rashford buying homes because, do you know what, he can do what he wants. But the way that they phrased it, the way that they said it, and the subtle things that they put, it just supports what everyone's been saying about how the media portray black English athletes and black athletes across the world. It's just wrong. It's wrong what they're doing. And fair play to Jonathan Liew for doing it. Also on the Howson's Brew yesterday, Jay said Darren Lewis, who had been on the Tier 1 podcast, was another journalist that brought it up. And fair play to all these journalists for bringing it up and putting to shame some of the so-called journalists. I keep calling these journalists from the Daily Mail and things like that. So-called journalists for writing these things about Mason Greenwood, Marcus Rashford, Raheem Sterling in the past, and all these different footballers. They need to have a look at themselves and not do it. Like I said, yesterday the podcast Howson's Brew was brilliant and they went into more in depth about it. So if you've not already checked that out, please go over and have a watch of that. So the news yesterday was around Paul Pogba and that Romano had been tweeting about an interview that Paul Pogba had been given, and it turns out that he'd misquoted him a little bit. And Fabrizio Romano, yeah, he backtracked a little bit yesterday. We love you, Fabrizio. We love the here we goes. We love everything you're doing around that. But I think he even saw he got that one wrong the other night. And the way he tweeted it, saying that Paul Pogba wasn't happy at Manchester United, was all wrong. Fabrizio Romano tweeted yesterday saying, do you know what? You're right. This wasn't the right context. He never mentioned that he wasn't happy at United. He mentioned that his form and all this kind of stuff. Jay mentioned this yesterday in the paper talk and said that Fabrizio Romano replied to that tweet saying that Paul Pogba and Manchester United are still looking at a new contract, and this was reiterated yesterday when he tweeted that Manchester United are looking at getting a new contract for Paul Pogba done in the next few months. And again, this is, I think, good news for Manchester United, but again, it's a strange situation for Paul Pogba. It's one that United, I think, are being a little bit more careful about, because it's not just a case of Paul Pogba's a very good player, we need to give him a new contract. We need to look at the long-term situation of he's going to be 28 next year. This contract will probably tick him over into his early 30s. And is Paul Pogba going to stay at Manchester United for the rest of his career? Because that's the decision that he's going to have to make. And if we offer him this contract, if we make him probably match De Gea's wages, one of the top paid players at Manchester United, if not the top paid player, I keep saying that, it's a tough one to say, top paid player at Manchester United, is that what we want to do? Because if we do that, does that keep having him stuck at Manchester United? Does that mean that we can't, if we want to, move him on? Because we've seen in recent weeks that Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, he can get by without starting Paul Pogba. And now, that doesn't mean to say that Paul Pogba isn't a fantastic footballer and isn't part of Ole Gunnar Solskjaer's plans, because you've seen when we've played some of our best football, probably the best football under Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, Paul Pogba and Bruno Fernandes have been in that starting 11. And I think Ole wants a fully fit Paul Pogba. But, like I said, I think he's been a little bit more careful with this and saying, do you know what? If we are going to sell him next summer, that is a possibility. Let's have a look at this. Let's not rush into things and offer him a ridiculous contract and again, it's not a bad player to be stuck with, but be stuck with Paul Pogba on a contract that no one, Juventus, Real Madrid, won't match, and that we've got a player that maybe doesn't want to be here, getting paid a lot of money, and that we can't move on. We don't want to be in that situation. We have too many players that are really bad at football, that aren't very good, like Phil Jones, that are stuck at Manchester United because no one can match his wages. It can work the same way with some of our best players. If we offer him this new contract, if we offer him 375 grand, £400,000 a week, where no one else can match it, no one else wants to match it, especially when he gets into his early 30s, it becomes a tough situation. It becomes a tough situation for Manchester United, and I think they've got to be careful about that one. Also about Paul Pogba last night, he put on a nice little post about him keeping his head down and working towards things for France. And Marchisio, his ex-teammate at Juventus, said, come to Juventus and be happy again. There's no need for it. Why are you doing it? Why do it? Why put that tweet out there? What? Just show a little bit of respect for football clubs. There was no need to tweet it. There was no need to do it. A few papers have ran with it this morning saying that a teammate's urged him to do it. I don't think there's much in that one. But at the same time, come on, lads. Let's just not do it. So finally, said at the start, we've got some Jadon Sancho news. Don't know how big news this is. It's coming from... This has been picked up by the Express and has been quoted from 90minutes.com that Manchester United are looking at getting the Jadon Sancho deal done nice and early and using what they've said as the Chelsea tactic. Don't know why Chelsea are now the ones that do this, but Manchester United used to do it all the time where they get a deal done in the middle of the season before the summer, get it done, get it signed, and the player would be, when it's signed, July 1st, that's when we're going to get our player in. Apparently United are looking at doing this with Jadon Sancho, which would be fantastic. We've not done it for a long time where we've agreed a deal for a player in the middle of the season, get it all done, get it all signed, and then we've not got to worry about it. We've not got to drag things on. I don't think this is the most concrete news, but do you know what? It just shows the Jadon Sancho thing. We all thought it was done. This is definitely not a done deal. Jadon Sancho is going to keep popping up constantly. It's going to be all the way through January. And if it doesn't happen then, it'll all the way through next summer that Jadon Sancho is going to be linked to Manchester United. In that article, they mentioned that Ole Gunnar Solskjaer is his number one target. And you've seen this season, we still are missing a right-hand-sided player. We've made the signings of Pellistri and Traore from Atalanta, but they don't look to be starting for Manchester United anytime soon. We still need a right winger. We still need someone to push that right-hand side. Is Jadon Sancho that man? We'll have to wait and see. Cheers, guys, for joining me at Old Trafford this morning for the news. Make sure you like the video. And if you're not already, make sure you subscribe. And who else does this? Who else comes to Old Trafford every morning to give you the news? That's no one else. Make sure you subscribe to Stretford Paddock. I'll see you next time.